Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with a three-way comparison of three heavyweight flagship headphones. These are from Meze, Erzetich, and Kennerton, and all three of these headphones are over-the-ear, full-size, planar magnetic designs. And like I said, these are all company flagship headphones. And we'll start with the Meze Empyrean, which is made in Romania and currently sells for $2,999. Second, we have the Erzetich Phobos, which is made in Slovenia, and this headphone currently sells for $2,199. And third, we have the Kennerton Thror, which is made in Russia, and this headphone currently sells with this type of wood. This is Zebrano wood, and there's several woods available, but this particular design with this wood currently sells for $3,408. So basically we've got about $8,600 worth of headphones in this comparison. So, and these do not all belong to me. A couple of these have to go back this week. In fact, the Imperiums, need to ship these out in a couple days, so that's why I'm trying to get this video together and done tonight. So anyway, this is not really a shootout. I'm not going to try to determine a winner. I'm basically going to break this comparison down into categories, and I will tell you how each headphone compares to the other two in each of these categories, and I'm going to let you decide what you think it would be the best headphone for you, because to be honest, I really like all three of these headphones. I think all three are outstanding headphones, and but I like them for different reasons. They definitely are different from each other in both design and sound, and there's some things I really like about each of these headphones. So, and I know that, this is really subjective. I mean, everyone has different taste. Everyone wants a different sound. So I really don't think there is a best headphone. Like I said, I think all three of these are outstanding. So I'm gonna, try to go through the categories and explain why I think each one of these is great, and they all have their good points, and they each have some slight weaknesses, but there's no such thing as a perfect headphone. I don't think so anyway. So anyway, let me get started. And first thing I'm going to do is talk about the appearance of these headphones. And we'll start with the Meze. And in my opinion, this is a beautiful headphone. And the workmanship is outstanding. But this is an all aluminum design, basically. Aluminum ear cups and leather ear pads and carbon fiber headband, and anyway, no complaints at all. I think this is an outstanding looking headphone. The Erzetich is quite a bit different looking. This is a wooden cup and an aluminum grill, and sort of a handmade look, but not the refinement of the Meze, but still a good looking headphone in my opinion. It is very large, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the Kennerton Thror, which has an ear cup made of wood. This is solid wood, not a veneer or anything like that, and aluminum yokes, leather band and leather pads and all that, and once again a really nice looking headphone in my opinion. So anyway, I think the first comparison I'm going to do is the weight, and I could give you the weights claimed by the manufacturers, and I'm pretty close weighing them myself. So, I mean, with my kitchen scale I'm coming real close, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you the measurements that I get with the kitchen scale, because even if it's not exactly accurate, it's still going to show you the difference between the three headphones. So according to my kitchen scale, and all three of these were measured with the ear pads on, but not the cables. And anyway, the Meze came in at 445 grams, which is slightly heavier than they claim in their specifications. I think they claim 420 or 430. Anyway, the Erzetich is by far the heaviest at 689 grams, and according to their website, they say I think 690, so I'm right on, you know, accurate with what they're claiming. And then the Kennerton comes in a little closer to the Meze at 499 grams, so this is what, 190 grams lighter than the Phobos. All three of these are really, considering they're planar magnetic headphones, all three are really pretty efficient. The Meze is 32 ohms, and they claim 100 decibels at 1 milliwatt. The Phobos is 45 ohms, and I think the same 100 decibels. And then the Kennerton is 42 ohms at 100 decibels at 1 milliwatt. So actually, I mean, they're not the easiest headphones to drive, but they're some of the easiest planar magnetic headphones I've seen. And really, it doesn't take a whole lot of amp to drive any of these three. You know, I mean, you're not going to need a real high-powered amp. You know, my Felix Audio Echo tube amp, which I think is 350 milliamps, is plenty for any of the three headphones. So, you know, like I said, you need a decent quality amp, but you don't need a real powerful amp with any of the three. All three use the same sort of connectors at the headphone end. They all three use a 4-pin mini XLR connection, and the cables are interchangeable between all three. The cables themselves, all three come with pretty nice cables. The Meze actually gives you a choice of either I think a 1 meter cable with a 3.5 millimeter connector, a 3 meter cable with a 6.3 millimeter, or a 3 meter cable with a 4-pin XLR balance connection. And then the Phobos and the Kennerton both come with 2 meter cables with a 6.3 millimeter connection at the amp end. Ear pads. The Mezes are made of real leather. They're very thick, they're very soft, and have plenty of room inside for your ear. And the Phobos is a synthetic leather. They take pride in the fact that no animals are harmed making their headphones, but they actually feel very similar to the real leather ear pads on the Meze, and of the three, these are probably actually the softest. And then the Kennerton uses a real lambskin leather, and not quite as soft as the other two, but very nice, very high quality ear pads in my opinion. And they are tapered, which the ear pads on neither of the other two are tapered. So the Kennertons are thicker in the back, which angles the ear cups a little bit, you know, puts the drivers at a little bit of a forward angle, which might improve the depth to the soundstage, because these do have real good depth. So anyway, the headbands, the Meze is a little bit unique. It's kind of formed to shape your head, and it is made of real leather. And the Phobos, I'm not sure what this is. This is, it's not a leather. It's sort of I don't know if it's a rubber material, or I'm not sure. It works well though. It keeps your head away from the metal band though. It separates and puts the weight on the strap and distributes it pretty even. And then the Kennerton also, it has an inner band made of leather that rests on your head. And I guess we'll talk about comfort. I would say I would consider all three of these headphones comfortable. I would say, well, let's start with the Meze. I'll keep these in the same order. That'll make it easier for me to keep things straight. So, you know, I'm not trying to show any favoritism. Just each category, I'm going to go ahead and go with the same order. First the Meze, then the Erzetich, then the Kennerton. So anyway, comfort-wise, if you saw my video a couple days ago, my review of this headphone, I think this is one of, if not the most comfortable headphones I've ever tried. I mean, this is just, there's very little clamping force. The ear pads are extremely soft. The weight is distributed well. There's plenty of room for my ears. It doesn't get any more comfortable than this. I would say the only headphones that I think compare with this comfort-wise are possibly the Hi-Fi Man Aria and maybe the Hi-Fi Man HE560, which is like 100 grams lighter and pretty comfortable itself. So anyway, second to none in comfort, the Meze. The Erzetich is actually, for the size and weight of these headphones, are actually quite comfortable. I mean, this is a very large headphone, and I can give you an idea here comparing it to the Meze side by side. This is a very large headphone. At 689 grams, it's the heaviest headphone by far that I've ever reviewed, but yet it's surprisingly comfortable. I mean, this headphone, the weight kind of goes away when it's on my head. It's well distributed. The ear pads are very soft. The openings are large. They don't touch my ears. I actually find this headphone surprisingly comfortable, even though you can see how large it is. And like I said, it is very heavy. But I've got no problems with the comfort of it. The Kennerton comes in a little bit heavier than the Meze. The ear pads, it's not quite as comfortable. The ear pads are a little stiffer. They don't have quite as much give, and the clamping force is a little tighter. But I will say, of the three, the Kennerton is definitely the most secure feeling on my head. I mean, I don't worry about this headphone going anywhere. I can lean over, I can shake my head. I mean, I could almost go jogging with this and not worry about it moving or coming up. So slightly less comfortable than the Meze, which is extremely comfortable. I still consider this headphone comfortable. The weight is, you know, kind of average, pretty decent. Like I said, you know, I do give this category to the Meze because it's outstanding, but I don't have any problems with either of the other two. I find them both very comfortable. Design and build quality, as you can see, the Meze is a pretty unique design. These ear cups, according to their website, are machined out of a solid piece of an aluminum, and I guess they claim about 20 hours of machine time. And if you look at these grills, these are outstanding. The detail in these and all the yoke and all the pieces and adjustments are all machined out of aluminum. The headband is carbon fiber, leather ear pads. I mean, once again, the Meze, I would say the build quality and design is second to none. I mean, this is just an exceptional headphone as far as build quality. The Phobos, it's not bad. I don't have any problems with it. I would say the build quality is good. It's got kind of a handmade look to it. The wood has kind of a rough look, rustic look to it. But everything fits well, and you know, no problems with the design. I don't see anything. Oh, I just noticed that when I was talking about headbands, I guess I skipped headbands altogether. Well, let me back up a little bit. Well, we'll start here while I have it. The headband on this headphone, you've got your twist adjustments here that adjust your height. They swivel this way, the yokes, they swivel this way. Kind of a simple, basic design, but it works well. The headband on this is a carbon fiber headband, and it's got pretty decent clamping force, but not excessive. You got your leather support inside, which is pretty comfortable. And then the Kennerton, you've got aluminum yokes with the same twist type of adjustments, but this, unlike the Erzetich, not only this slides up and down, but it also rotates, so you can rotate the ear cups forward to back to put more pressure on the front or back, because the yokes themselves don't swivel. So it takes a little more time to get this adjusted properly, but once you do, it's, stays exactly where you put it, and works real well, very comfortable. And so 3 different designs, but they all work real well in my opinion. Okay, back to build quality, which I kind of backed up from. Anyway, the Erzetich, good build quality, but, like I said, sort of a handmade, kind of a rustic look. The Kennerton, I think it has outstanding build quality. The craftsmanship, the wood cups, I mean, they're beautiful. The work on it, the aluminum yokes, the leather ear pads, I mean, they look just outstanding to me. The leather headband, and the adjustments, everything about this, I mean, just very high quality work, very, very excellent build quality. This category, I'd say I've got to give a slight edge to the Meze, just outstanding build quality, but the Kennerton is also excellent build quality, and the Phobos, like I said, good build quality, but just not on the level of the other 2. Let's get into the sound a little bit. Tone balance, which is important, because I mean, that's, like I said, headphone, it's subjective what a person likes, and the tone balance is kind of a major thing, I mean, is it neutral, is it bassy, is it V-shaped or whatever. So anyway, I'll start with the Meze again. And the tone balance on the Meze, I would say, is definitely on the warm side of neutral, and I would say definitely on the bassy side of neutral. Not really V-shaped. I'd say the mid-range and treble, although I would consider them neutral. They're a little on the warm side, and like I said, there's definitely an emphasis in the bass. The Phobos, I would say just about neutral, the tone balance on these. Maybe a slight emphasis in the mid bass, maybe 3 decibels of emphasis in the mid bass. Otherwise, I would consider this a very neutral, slightly warm sound signature. Not cold, just maybe slightly warm of neutral. And then the Kennerton, I would consider the most neutral of the 3. I would say this headphone is just dead on neutral, just probably one of the most neutral, I mean, no humps, no valleys, nothing short, nothing overemphasized, just an extremely neutral headphone with just a slight bit of warmth in the mid-range, just enough to give voices, just kind of a little bit warm and sort of a creamy sound. Let's talk about the bass. First, bass extension. I would say all 3 of these have pretty good bass extension. They all 3 reach pretty deep into the sub bass. No complaints on any of them. Bass weight is where there's a lot of difference. The weight of the bass that compared to the mid-range and all that. And like I said earlier, the Meze definitely is on the bassy side of neutral, and definitely has the most weight to the bass of the 3. Definitely you know, an emphasis on the bass. I would say probably 5 or 6 decibels away from being neutral. If you took a dead neutral headphone and gave it about 5 or 6 decibels of boost at, you know, in the lower mid bass, I would say you'd be about the same place as the Meze is. The Phobos, I would say would be in the middle, and it has just a slight emphasis in the mid bass. It has a little bit more weight to it than the Thror, but definitely less than the Meze. And then the Thror, I would say, has the least amount of bass of the three. Once again, I would consider it neutral, but some people consider neutral to be thin sounding or lacking in bass. I personally really like the way it sounds. You know, if you go directly from the Meze to the Thror will sound kind of thin as far as the bass is concerned, but after a few minutes, you know, you kind of adjust to it. And on the other hand, if you go from the Thror to the Meze actually, the bass sounds a little overemphasized and, you know, not as controlled. So, you know, it's kind of a toss-up, one or the other. And, you know, like I said, I mean, they can't build a headphone that's going to please everyone. So, you know, each manufacturer kind of goes in a different direction and, you know, tries to make at least some of the people happy. So anyway, bass control, I would say that the Kennerton Thror definitely has the most control. It has the least amount of bass, the least weight, but it has the tightest, fastest, most controlled bass of the three. And I would say the Phobos would be second in line. It's got just a little bit more emphasis to the mid bass than the Thror, and just a little less control, but you know, pretty close to the Thror. And then the Meze, that has the most weight to the bass, it has the most bass presence, but it definitely, of the three, has the least control of the bass, where the bass, I wouldn't say it's muddy, but, or I wouldn't even say it's loose, but it just doesn't have that really tight, you know, rock solid control that the other two do have. You know, it's like I said, a little bit of like I said, not muddiness, just it's not the tightest bass in the world, I'll put it that way. Bass detail, I would say that's kind of a toss-up. The Kennerton and the Erzetich both have very good detail in the bass. You know, very good distinction between the different bass notes. Where the Meze that hits harder in the bass, there's less distinction between the different notes. You know, it just kind of, I'm not saying they all sound the same, but you know, that it's not a one note bass, but there's less distinction than with the other two headphones. Bass impact, I would say of the three, the Erzetich probably has the most impact. The Kennerton is a dynamic headphone, but because it has a little bit less weight to the bass, you don't feel the impact as much. The Phobos, that has a little bit more emphasis in the mid bass, hits a little bit harder because of that emphasis. The Meze, that has the most bass, actually I think has the least impact. It's sort of a softer, it's a softer bass with less slam to it. You know, it just doesn't hit as hard. The bass is very present and very weighty, but you know, instead of a slam, it's more of a thud. It's you know, just doesn't hit as hard. Getting into the mids, all three headphones, I would say I'll start with the Kennerton. The Kennerton has just a slightly little bit warm of neutral mid-range. Vocals, especially female vocals, have a very smooth sound to them, and no harshness or anything like that in the mid-range. Very, very clean. I would say that's the way I would describe the mid-range of the Kennerton. Just exceptionally clean sounding with zero distortion and zero harshness to it. The mid-range in the Phobos is very similar, just I would say slightly warmer, slightly creamier, and then going to the Meze, I would describe the Meze mid-range as being very on the warm side of neutral, and very rich, very thick, very creamy, and I mean just beautiful sounding. I love the way the mid-range sounds in the Meze. But getting to mid-range detail, I would say that rich, thick, creamy mid-range sound of the Meze, you give up a little bit of detail. Not a lot. I mean, it still has very good detail, but not to the point of the other two. The Phobos and the Thror I would consider to be almost analytical as far as mid-range detail. Just both have exceptional detail and will dig out every last sound on a recording. You're not going to miss anything with either of those two, where the Meze is a little softer and a little more laid back, and like I said, the Phobos and the Thror are almost analytical. The Meze is definitely not analytical. As far as smoothness, I would say definitely the Meze has the smoothest, although all three are very smooth. I mean, like I said, just no harshness at all. All three have a very smooth, very pleasant mid-range, but the Meze just, has that really rich, thick, creamy sound to it, so I would say that's probably the smoothest of the three. Getting into the treble extension, I would say all three are good, but I would say the Phobos and the Thror probably extend a little higher. The Meze, compared to the other two, seems to roll off just a little bit in the treble. Not much. I mean, the Meze still has very good treble extension with good sparkle and all that, but I would say that the Phobos and the Thror both go a little bit higher into the treble and a little more clarity in the treble. Treble detail, which, yeah, exactly. The Thror and the Phobos have very good detail in the treble. The Meze just a little bit less, just a slight roll off in the treble. So, if you don't like bright sounding headphones, I don't consider the Thror or the Phobos bright, but a lot of people like a headphone with a little bit of roll off in the treble, and that would be the Meze. Like I said, not a lot, just a slight roll off. Overall detail, I would consider the Kennerton Thror to be the most detailed headphone I've ever heard. Okay, I've never heard the Sennheiser HD 800, which is known for exceptional detail, and I've never heard the Focal Utopia, which is also known for exceptional detail. So I don't know how it compares to those, but as far as everything I've heard or reviewed so far, the Kennerton is the most detailed headphone I've ever heard. I mean, it just brings out details that other headphones just can't. The Phobos is not far behind. It is also a very detailed headphone, just slightly behind the Kennerton in that respect. The Meze, although it has very good detail, and when I'm listening to it, I don't feel I'm missing anything at all, but if I compare it to the Phobos or the Thror, I'm not hearing quite the detail. I mean, like things like acoustic guitars, I just don't hear the detail. I don't hear quite the amount of, just the vibration of the strings, the resonance from the wood of the guitar. I feel like I'm missing just a little bit with the Meze compared to the Phobos or the Thror. But like I said, all three have excellent detail, but the Phobos is beyond excellent, and the Thror is outstanding as far as overall detail. Imaging, I would say all three headphones have very good imaging. All very precise, very easy to locate all the instruments, everything sounds separated. Although I would give a slight edge to the Meze, it just has exceptional imaging, just pinpoint imaging where, each instrument is just in a pinpoint location. So all three very good, but I'd give a slight edge to the Meze. Soundstage, all three have good width, height, and depth of the soundstage. None of the three lack at all. I would say of the three, the Phobos has the largest soundstage, probably the largest soundstage I've heard of any headphone. It's just, the Phobos is a big headphone. It's big in size, it's big in weight, and the sound is just big. When I listen to it, I just hear a huge soundstage, both in width and height, and has pretty good depth too. The soundstage on the Meze, I would just say, is kind of average to above average in pretty much every way, but nothing exceptional, nothing really stands out. The soundstage of the Kennerton Thror is kind of unique because it's not quite as big as the soundstage on the Phobos, but it probably has the best depth of the three, and it has a very three-dimensional sound of the soundstage, where things are in multiple layers. I hear sounds in several different layers going forward and going sideways. So of the three, I would say the Thror has the most three-dimensional soundstage. The Phobos has the largest, but not quite as three-dimensional of sound as the Thror, and then the Meze probably has probably its largest soundstage as the Thror, but not the depth and not the three-dimensional sound of the Thror. Dynamics, I would say the most dynamic of the three is probably the Thror, but just a slight edge over the Phobos. The Phobos and the Thror have very good dynamics, very punchy. Sounds just kind of jump out at you. Where the Meze the Empyrean has a quite different sound. The Meze is a much softer, less dynamic, less punchy. Just doesn't hit as hard. But yet it's got a lot of weight to it, and just very smooth and relaxing and very enjoyable. So, it lacks the dynamics of the other two, but I still consider it enjoyable. As far as fatigue, listening fatigue, well, I'll cover both. Wearing fatigue, you will never get tired wearing the Meze. One of the most comfortable headphones I've ever tried. The other two, neither one of them is bad. They're both comfortable in my opinion. As far as listening fatigue, the Empyrean is probably the least fatiguing headphone I've ever heard. You will never hear anything harsh. You will never hear anything sibilant. I think if you want a headphone that you can listen to for hours on end without any listening fatigue, the Meze is the headphone for you. The other two, because they're more detailed and more dynamic, they're going to wear you out a little faster as far as listening fatigue. Like I said earlier, the Phobos and the Thror are both almost analytical in sound, and when you etch out every last detail, it sounds, it can sound great at first, but if you want to do a long listening session, it can get a little tiring after a while. I can listen to either one of them for, a couple hours at a time with no problems, but it's just not that smooth, relaxed sound, but it is more detailed. If you're searching for, the most detail you can get out of a recording, the Thror especially, and the Phobos almost as much, is really going to dig in deep and get that. So it's kind of a trade-off, less fatiguing is less detail and less dynamic, less impact. And, the Thror that has more detail and more impact, more dynamic is going to, be a little more fatiguing. But like I said, none of them are bad. The sound is so clean from all three of these that, I don't consider any of the three fatiguing. I can listen to any of them for at least a couple hours at a time. Accuracy, I would say the Thror is probably the most accurate because it has the most neutral tone balance, no emphasis anywhere, no dips or anything. If you're looking for all-out accuracy, if you want to hear a recording exactly the way it was intended, I would say the Thror is number one. The Phobos is number two, a little bit behind that. And then the Empyrean, I would have to say, is the least accurate of the three because of the emphasis in the bass. So, like I said, probably a 5 or 6 decibel emphasis to the bass. So, it's not as accurate in my opinion. Smoothness, all three very smooth, but the Empyrean, because it's not the most dynamic and it's not the most detailed, actually sounds the smoothest of the three. Fun factor, that's kind of disregarding accuracy, disregarding what the perfect headphone should be, and just going by what is fun to listen to. And I'll be honest, I really like the Meze. The Meze is very fun to listen to. That extra emphasis in the bass, with rock and electronic music, things like that, just increases the fun factor in my opinion. But all three of them, score real high. I mean, I love listening to all three of these headphones. So, I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about as far as sound would be realism. How real does the music sound? And the other night, I was listening to some Dire Straits. The Sultans of Swing, which is sort of a greatest hits CD. And the last 2 tracks on it are live recordings that I can't remember the names of the songs, but I think they're real well done. And I tried all 3 headphones. And on the Empyrean, they sound like a very good, very high quality live recording. Very enjoyable. Okay, on the Thror, I feel like I'm there. The Thror, like no other headphone that I've ever heard, makes me feel like I'm right there sitting in the concert, in the first few rows of a concert. I feel like I'm right there hearing it live. Also, with vocals, especially female vocals, the Thror just jumps out at me where female vocals just sound like I'm right there 5 feet away listening to that woman sing. I mean, I've never had the feeling of being there the way I do with the Thror, and I love that. The Meze sounds great. The Thror is outstanding. The Phobos, in my opinion, sounds a whole lot like the Thror in that respect. It has a very 3-dimensional sound stage, and I very much get the feeling like I'm there, but not quite as much as with the Thror. The Thror, that is, in my opinion, the strongest point of the Thror, is that ability to make me feel like I'm there listening to live music. Had sort of the same experience listening to 10,000 Maniacs. It was an MTV unplugged acoustical live recording. And same thing with the Thror. I just feel like I'm right there. Also, what's another one? Fleetwood Mac. The live recording, the dance, same thing. You know, the Thror, I just feel like I'm right there listening to it live. The Phobos, real close, not far behind. And the Meze, like I said, it just sounds like a really good live recording, but I don't feel like I'm there the way I do with the other two. So anyway, oh, I wanted to mention accessories. The Meze does come with 2 sets of ear pads, one leather and one is sort of a velour material. I forgot what they call it. It's a synthetic material. And also the Meze comes with a very nice aluminum carrying case. Very well padded, has room for a couple of cables, has room for the extra pair of ear pads, and an outstanding case made of aluminum, where the other two, the Kennerton comes in a very nice wooden box. The Phobos comes in a cardboard box. But that's reflected in the price, and I'll get to that in a minute. Just to, kind of sum it up, the Empyrean, very smooth, relaxed, very pleasant sound. I enjoyed very much. Not the best bass control in the world, not quite as tight as the other two. Not quite the detail of the other two headphones, but just very, very pleasant, very non-fatiguing, and I could listen to it forever. The Phobos is kind of in between the two headphones, very detailed, slight emphasis on the bass, very well balanced in every way. Overall, I would say maybe the best overall balance of all 3 headphones as far as sound quality. The Thror, just exceptional detail, exceptional clarity, almost analytical at times. It will point out flaws in, lesser quality recordings. But, if you're looking for the last detail in a recording, if you want to hear everything that's there, the Thror is the way to go, in my opinion. I guess last thing, it comes down to price and value. Once again, the Empyrean sells for $2,999. The Erzetich Phobos is $800 less at $2,199. And the Thror is the most expensive of the 3 at $3,408 in the Zebrano wood, like I showed you. And I mean, all 3 of them are expensive headphones. There's no denying that. And, yes, there's headphones at half the price that will get you 80-90% of the way there. But if you want to get all the way there, if you want to get, the best sound possible, you got to spend the money to do it. I mean, it's the law of diminishing returns. I mean, I've heard people say in the headphone world to get 10% better, you have to spend twice as much. And, I think that's pretty accurate. And that's basically where these headphones are at, compared to, maybe a $1,000 headphone or a $1,500 headphone. That's going to get you 80 or 90% of the way here to where these headphones are at. But if you want to make that last step and, go as far as you possibly can, then, you got to get up into this price range. So, yeah, they're all 3 expensive, but, if the ultimate sound is what you're looking for, it's probably a reasonable deal. Because, I mean, if you were going to try to duplicate the sound of these headphones with speakers, you'd be looking at 10 to 20 times that amount, to get the same sound out of speakers. You'd probably be looking at a $60,000 pair of speakers, and then amps and all that to drive them, and then the perfect room to put it in, because room acoustics are going to have a huge effect on your speaker system, where none of that comes into effect with headphones. So, I mean, is $3,400 too much for a headphone? Well, I mean, you can create a sound that would take probably 20 times that amount with speakers to duplicate. So in that respect, it's an exceptional deal, I think. So comparing the three to each other, the Phobos at $21.99, in my opinion, has a very similar sound to the Thror. It doesn't reach quite there. It doesn't get you quite there, but it's $1,200 cheaper. So, that's quite a bit of difference. The Thror is going to take you a little further. I mean, I'm being honest about that. The Phobos isn't going to get you quite there, but it's quite a bit cheaper. The Empyrean is in the middle price-wise, kind of a different sound altogether. It's a flagship headphone that has chosen to give up a little bit of detail for a rich, thick, creamy sound. And I can understand where a lot of people would like that. I've heard some people say they think the Empyrean is the best headphone in the world. And if you're willing to give up a little bit of detail, willing to give up a little bit of control in the bass, it is an outstanding headphone. The Thror, on the other hand, is an outstanding headphone in my opinion too. I mean, has exceptional detail, exceptional clarity. You are going to hear everything on the recording, and extremely accurate. You're going to hear it exactly the way it was recorded. So, I'm not going to try to tell you which is the best. My personal taste, well, I like all three. It depends what mood I'm in. Sometimes I'm in the mood for, to etch out every last detail. Sometimes I want to just sit back and relax and want to listen to music for 2 or 3 hours, and something a little more relaxed sounding is better for that. And it depends on the music. A lesser recording, you're going to get by with the Empyrean, where the Phobos or the Thror especially, a lesser quality recording, you're going to hear the faults in the recording, the defects, and that might bother you, so you might want something with a little less detail. So, with me, it kind of depends on my mood and what I'm looking for at the time. Do I want to hear a recording to hear exactly what's on that recording and every last detail? Am I doing critical listening, or am I just putting on my headphones before bed and wanting to relax? So, that has a lot of effect on what I want to hear. And I think that's why a lot of people have more than one headphone, and why there probably is no perfect headphone that's perfect for all situations, all people, all music. It doesn't exist. So basically, I'm going to let you decide, based on the information I gave you, which of these three headphones you think would be best for you. So, going to leave it up to you. I'm not going to try to pick one and tell you it's the best. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. This is turned into one of my longest, probably my longest video ever. So once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you are all welcome to join us over at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. Thank you.